We're going to go ahead and get started here. I think we got a few more people can join in when they sign in and stuff, but I'm going to introduce myself first. My name is Sarah. I'm one of the Zaagaate mentoring specialists. And then Aaron, introduce yourself. Aaron.
Hi, I'm Aaron Hernandez. I'm the other mentoring specialist.
And then also later on, we have a very special guest. Her name is Winnie Wemagwas, and she is going to be talking to you guys about kind of cultural competencies, a little bit of historical trauma, and very knowledgeable, very awesome person. So can't wait to hear from her. All right, so we should get started. Okay.
Sounds good.
So here, I'll let you go, Aaron.
Okay, these are Anishinaabemoowin. That is how you say the language. Hey, what up, Winnie? I just scrolled by your little face. So the first one, you would say your name first, and then Nadijnikaz. I kind of messed up the little phonetic thing. It should be like Nidij. There should be like a Z in there, right, Winnie? You're better at this than I am. Nadijnikaz. So mine would be Aaron Nadijnikaz. That's my name is Aaron. And then the second one is Indojiba, right, Sarah? Indojiba.
Yep.
Indojiba. So I'd say Detroit, Indojiba. So that's where I'm from.
All right. And we're just gonna kind of go like around to like you guys can like chime in, or I can call on you, whichever way you want to do it, and just see if you can introduce yourself in the language. So I would say Sarah Indijnikaz, Mount Pleasant Indunjaba.
You got to call on people, Sarah, so they know who to go.
Oh, how about I'll ask y'all to unmute. All right, Lauren, how do you, okay, I said it right.
Okay, I'll go first. Lauren Nadijnikaj.
Yeah.
Brighton, Michigan, Indojiba.
Good.
Yeah, there you go. Cody, how about you?
You're still on mute.
Cody, you're muted.
You're muted, Cody.
Thank you for that, everyone. Cody Indijnikaj and Mount Pleasant Indojiba.
Yeah, sounds good.
Alexis.
Alexis Nadijnikaz, Iron River, Indojiba.
Nice. Shay, how about you?
Shay Nadijnikaz, Mount Pleasant, Indojiba.
How about Manisha? Did I say that right?
Yep, Manisha.
Manisha. That's a pretty name.
Manisha Nadijnikaz, Ann Arbor, Indojiba.
Oh, good.
Nice. Gabriel?
You hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Gabe Nadijnikaz, Tucson, Arizona, Indojiba.
Nice.
That's a good group.
Yeah. Who is next? Who is Come 1RC?
Sorry, that's me. I didn't know we could make our own names. But Rab Ishnikaz, Mount Pleasant, Indojiba.
Nice. How about Abhi?
Abhi.
Abhi.
Abhi Nadijnikaz, Ann Arbor, Indojiba.
All right. How about Samantha?
Sam Nadijnikaz, Ann Arbor, Indojiba.
All right. And Lady of the Hour, and this is Miss Whitney.
And she stepped away.
Oh.
No, I'm here. I'm just having technical difficulties. Hold on a second.
Okay.
I am here.
So for all of your guys' first...
Sorry, I feel like I've been like a slacker all day long. It's just been kind of crazy. And I have a dog, and he just decided he wanted to start freaking out, so I just had to go toss him out of the bedroom. So, Wene Wemagwas and Dijnakas, Waganuxing or Harbor Springs and Donjaba.
That sounded good,
That's
Renee.
Michigan.
Yeah, that sounded beautiful.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah. Wow, we got an awesome group today. You guys like sounded awesome. So you're all here today about the Zaagaate mentoring program, and I'll let Aaron kind of take over the first spot this time.
Sure. It's Zaagaate. That's how you pronounce it. It means the coming of light, lighting a path, the beginning of something, encompassing a brighter future, light allowing them to grow and prosper. So that was kind of like the thought of the mentor. That's what we are, is like the light, you know, we're trying to help kids out. The way the language works though is, you know, if you ask someone else to translate this word, they might have a little bit different take on it because it's describing what someone sees. But yeah, that's Zaagaate, and that's what it means.
We are your mentoring specialists. That's me. That's Aaron. Next. So for our Zaagaate mentoring program, we basically, we are funded through a grant through the Department of Education, and we have program objectives, and these are kind of like when they ask you like, oh, what is the mentoring program like? What is it for? This is what we're for. Overall, what we want is to be able to enhance college and career readiness to our Native American youth. And it says here, you know, through a system of care that's comprehensive, collaborative, coordinated, and culturally congruent to Native American students, which, how are we going to do that? So we have these goals that we have to hit. One of them is to decrease the amount of dropout rates, basically, and decrease truancy, and then raise our graduation rates of our Native American students here in the Mount Pleasant area school districts. We also want to increase the amount of our students who are just, they're going to college, they're either applying to college or they're doing like post-secondary education, whether it's like trade school, any military, all that kind of stuff. And then we also are promoting like 100% drug and alcohol-free lifestyle. Yeah. So that's kind of like the overall of why we do what we do. And then who is our program for is more of, here, you can go, Aaron.
Okay, so we serve Native American at-risk youth. Our mentees have to self-identify as Native American, so they don't have to be registered to a tribe or anything like that. As long as they say they're Native American, they can join us.
Yep, so we serve at-risk youth, and then kind of one of those things, it's like you want to figure out like, okay, what does an at-risk youth, you know, look like? And the first thing that usually comes to mind is going to be, you know, these kids that are gangs, throwing up gang signs, you know, gathering in groups, though they're the misfits, the ones that have domestic violence and they're all bruised and stuff. But is it more so this what come to mind? Like in our program, a lot of like our mentors come in expecting to see like these type of kids versus these type of kids, you know? So
yeah, one of my mentors told me to, all youth are at risk because at that age, it doesn't matter who your parents are, how much money you have, anything like that. You know, you're at a susceptible age to make decisions that could affect the rest of your life, and you're under a lot of peer pressure to fit in, stuff like that. So I would say don't have like an image in your mind of who's at risk. All kids are at risk. So Zaagaate mentoring program provides cultural identity, incorporates Anishinaabemowan language. That's a little bit of what we did with you just at the beginning. Partner Native American youth with mentors in the community, foster a positive experience between youth and adults, and we get Native students excited about school and what they're going to do after school.
yeah. So when you talk about being a mentor, kind of leads into like, what does it take to be a mentor? And some of the expectations that for our program, what we kind of have is, you know, good attendance, positive role modeling, you know, accountability, being able to listen, and just being genuine and supportive to our students. One thing is like, just be authentic with them, because like for our kids and our mentors, they're gonna be able to like spot someone who's being fake, kind of. And that's something that a lot of our kids in our community are like craving, that authenticity. So that's something that we really stress to our mentors, and like just having that expectation of being honest and real with the kids, and especially about like, you know, experiences about like, hey, what's it like applying to college? Hey, what was the process you had to go through? Like that stuff's interesting to them. And yeah, so.
Volunteer.
Aaron, I muted you by accident.
I had to click something, sorry.
Sorry, I muted you by accident.
That's all good. You can hear me now though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so volunteers are people who want to help the tribe out in a particular area without pay. Volunteers give up personal time, hours, and responsibilities. Volunteers are determined by an informal agreement between the volunteer and the director of the program they're helping with. Disputes over roles and responsibilities will be handled in an informal manner. So yeah, if you have any problems with the way we're doing anything, you know, we can just talk about it. We're pretty cool about things like that.
Yeah. And also like now, even though we're virtual, but usually hopefully when we do get back to, you know, face-to-face interactions within the community, there's usually always something going on every week, that there's volunteer opportunities or like language classes that are all open to the public and stuff, that the more you get around like the people in the community and the culture, the more you're gonna just learn in general. But yeah. And then here, our background checks. So we do background checks through Verified Volunteers Talent Solutions. Hopefully all of you guys got the email. If you didn't, let me know, because there are a few people that didn't get the email, and like I'm working with their IT people to get that figured out. So just shoot me an email if you got it. Awesome. If not, cool. We'll figure that out and working with it. But yep, it's background checks. It's all done online through secured servers that the tribe pays for. Just wanted to make sure you guys reiterated that, so you guys know that you don't have to pay for the background check. That's something that we take care of through our grant. And then also that any information that would come up on the background check is housed in here. It's all kept confidential. It's all private. You don't have to worry about like whatever popping up or something. And honestly, just kicks back it's about a 24-hour turnaround time, and it just kicks back a report if there is something. So yeah.
So attendance policies, this is probably one of the main things that you need to worry about is we just want mentors to be consistent with their attendance. So a mentor will be allowed 2 absences, 1 per each semester from training, workshops, mentor activity for the academic year, only if it's accompanied by a verified and reasonable excuse or has been properly pre-approved at least 1 week in advance. So if you got something coming up and you can't make it, just let us know. You can shoot us an email. We have our emails at the end of this, so you can take those down.
Yeah. And like, we also get like, life happens, like you get flat tires, family emergencies come up with COVID. It's, you never know what's going to happen. So like someone's dog went into labor, but you never know. But yeah, we're usually really reasonable with like, hey, this happened. As long as you like let us know before like the program actually starts, it should not be an issue at all usually. But on the rare chance that it is an issue, we do have an unexcused absence policy. So if we do have like multiple absences and we're just not like, you're not communicating or we're not communicating, or we feel like it's being abused, we can talk to you, see what's going on. And then if you do wish to leave the program, we do have a departure process that you go to where you write a letter to your mentee, and that basically tells them like, hey, this is what's going on, but it helps create that closure. So we just want to make sure you guys understand that as well. Yeah.
So training, all mentors will be required to attend one training and one professional development opportunity during the academic year. So what you're doing today counts as one. And we'll let you know through emails when other stuff comes up. There should be a lot of opportunities at different times so you can get one in. All training session information will be given in advance to accommodate the best possible mentor schedule. Each training session will be held twice every academic semester. A mentor only has to attend one of these sessions. Professional development opportunities will be offered and encouraged for all mentors to attend.
We have a confidentiality agreement. It's basically understanding that you guys are going to be working with minors, and kind of like we're in a small town, so you never know who knows who. And especially like here in Mount Pleasant, you have a lot of families that know other people's families, and then you never know who you're going to run into. So we like to say, you know, don't like disclose names or anything like that, or say you have a student that tells you something and you're talking to your friend at B-dubs and you don't know that the family next to you might be related to that kid you're talking about. And, you know, so just kind of keep that in mind too, because then we're getting called into offices and stuff's getting said. And yeah, in a small town, you kind of run into that a lot. So you just understand that. And then also understand that we are a federally recognized tribe. So some of the repercussions, if like we were have to like report anything, it's gonna go to like a federal level, which is not good. But most of you guys are HIPAA trained and understand about confidentiality and stuff too. So hopefully we won't have an issue with this. Which leads us to our mandated reporting.
So me and Sarah are mandated reporters. I'm not sure if any of you are in your professions or in other organizations you're in. Basically, if you think, you know, you can let me and Sarah know, and we're mandated reporters, so we'd have to report it. If you feel morally obligated, even if you're not a mandated reporter, you can always report things based on what you feel is right. So, you know, things to report would be if you suspect abuse or maltreatment, and all complaints will be investigated and reported to the proper authorities by us. But again, you can do that on your own if you feel like you have to.
Yeah. And just kind of like say you do suspect something, we really encourage you guys to come to us. We have an open door policy. And chances are, if there is something like going on at home, we probably already know about it, and it's probably already like being either investigated or taken care of and kind of stuff. So yeah, if you guys, hopefully we don't run into something like this, but it's something we got to go over for the fun stuff. And now we get to the really fun stuff. Okay, so don't do drugs, don't smoke weed, and don't do alcohol. Do not be drinking alcohol while you're on the Zoom meeting. Do not come high to a Zoom meeting. Do not be smoking cigarettes or all that fun stuff around the kids. This is mainly more for like when we're in person kinda. So like, don't do that. But I'm sure like you guys are all college students. You pretty much figured out that. And then this here is more safety procedures for when we were meeting face-to-face at the different buildings. They all had different like routes to go if there's a fire drill or stuff like that. So it's kind of irrelevant now that we're meeting in Zoom, and also with the dress code here. I'll let Aaron take over on that one.
Sure. Your pants have to follow below your knee at all times. Jeans must be in good taste. Shirts must be in good taste. Don't have any like logos that are questionable about like weed or beer or anything like that. I feel like this is pretty self-explanatory. You guys are supposed to be role models, so just check your outfits. Also, keep in mind you're going to be working with teen boys and teen girls, so you know, dress appropriately because you might get flirted with when you don't want to. I mean, you might either way, and you might just have to shut it down. You're on mute, Sarah. Yeah, that brings us to our next slide. But you're on mute, Sarah.
was gonna say, I don't know how to unmute myself.
There you go.
Yeah, which would lead us to sexual harassment. So hold on, I have to read this legally. Sexual harassment is defined as the unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct or communication of a sexual nature when submission to a conduct or communication is made a term of condition of employment. Submission or rejection to the conduct or communication is used as a factor in employment decisions, and the conduct or communication has a purpose of creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. If any of these situations occur, contact me or Aaron. We will handle it accordingly. Which I'm sure most of you guys understand sexual harassment, and it's not something we run into, but it's one of those legal things that we got to put in there. So, yeah. So another thing with our program is we actually provide you guys with gift cards, like gas cards. So I don't know, Aaron, you can take this one. You're a little bit better at explaining it than I am.
Sure. So that says $10 gift card you're gonna get each time, but it's up to 20 this year. You're allowed to opt out of the $20. You just have to sign. It's actually a gift card, but if you don't want to take it, because I know some people, can you guys still hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I have headphones made a weird noise. Yeah, I know some people don't want to take the gift card because it kind of doesn't feel like volunteering if you're taking a gift card. You can opt out of that. You just have to sign something saying that we offered to you and you decided not to take it. It's between us though. If you want to take it, you just sign for it, and we understand college students need money. So, that's up to you.
Yeah, and the thought process behind this, when we were meeting face to face, the students were responsible for their own transportation. So this was a way to kind of help them, because you're going like to Shepherd and stuff, and that's like a 10-minute drive. So yeah. And then these are the procedures where if you do want to accept it, these are also in that Zaagaate booklet we emailed you guys. If you need another copy of that, let us know. And I think we are going to get to our cultural awareness section, and we're going to have Miss Winnie take over. Winnie?
Hello. Let me see. So if you guys want to just kind of put your paw up in the air, have any of you heard of historical trauma? Have you heard of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences? Okay, cool. Both of those concepts are going to be something that you're going to run into quite often in working with the youth that we work with. And if you think of it as there's kind of two types of people in the world, there's people that are continuing to be negatively affected by trauma, or there's people that are actively working to not be affected by that trauma. So you may have people that have developed maladaptive coping mechanisms, or what they called. So let's say, there's alcoholism, substance abuse. And then there are other people who actively every single day choose to address those issues in a different, more healthy way. And mentoring is an excellent way to do that. So we're really grateful that you're willing to donate and contribute some of your own time in helping to teach our young people better coping skills for some of the issues that they run into in their lives. So a little bit more about me. I worked with Sarah, 2 years ago now? About a year and a half ago. I was a mentoring specialist with Sarah. So I had a great time helping kind of put this training together and then working with the kids. And I just felt very fortunate to have had that experience. And I'm glad to see how many people there are here during this training, because, really finding people that are willing to volunteer is really, really hard, especially right now. So thank you for that. So what Sarah asked me to talk about today was historical trauma, intergenerational trauma, and I have a short video for you to watch, as well as some historical information on how those concepts, the story of those concepts in relation to the particular population that you're going to be working with. So I've gotten better at my Zoom skills, but I may just mess up here, so I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, Sarah, you got to enable sharing so I can. Can't hear you. I'm not able to share and I can't hear. You're on mute.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Sorry, guys. Small technical difficulties.
And I didn't give her a heads up that I was doing this. So.
Yeah.
I think you have to go back in and just enable it.
Oh. My like thingy keeps disappearing on me. There we go. Did you get it now?
Yes.
Okay. Can you share your screen now?
Yep, hold on. There, is it working?
Yes.
You see YouTube? Sweet. Okay.
There are many examples of historically traumatic events that have had long-lasting consequences on people and communities today.
These events include planned phenomenon by government and government-sponsored institutions. It also includes environmental trauma and spiritual trauma. But in 1879, the federal government started doing a couple of different things in terms of Indian policy that's really important to know about. One of the things that the government decided was that we were more human than they thought we were before. And what happened was three major movements happened. One is we became eligible to be declared insane. The other was we became educable. The third is our religion became outlawed.
One example of an historically traumatic event was the creation of mandatory boarding schools for Native American children.
Off-reservation boarding schools where kids were taken from their homes and placed far away. And the idea is they didn't want any contact with community or culture or family. There was forced removal for a lot of these kids with no return until they were young adults back to their communities. So by 1909, there were more than 25 off-reservation boarding schools, more than at least 100,000, we think, Native children forced to attend these schools during that period. And attendance was mandatory or the parents would be imprisoned or fined.
How were families affected by the trauma of being forced to attend the American Indian boarding schools?
I'm just going to give you an example of some of the breakup of the family and how that affects a person on a cellular level, this historical trauma. My one uncle really always struggled, and I always wondered, why was he different? Finally, my dad told me the story. He said, your grandma won't tell you. They came onto the reservation and they were taking children and forcibly putting them into boarding schools. And so she played a game and she said, you guys were going to go play hide and seek. Well, he was outside. He got caught and he was sent away. So when you compare my father and my uncle, you guys said, why won't grandma talk? He says, it's too painful. She can't talk about that. It's too painful. So she never talked about that, but you can see the difference in how his life went in comparison to my father's.
So here's an example of Carlisle. These schools were militaristic in fashion, not surprising since it was modeled off of a prison. Look how young these kids are. Some of them are really young, 3, 4 years old, being sent off to these schools. Now, what do we know? They were not parented. They were forced to not speak their language, and in some cases encountered torture and physical brutality if they did anything cultural. They encountered sexual abuse at incredibly high rates. 90% of kids were sexually abused in some communities. So what happens to this generation? They don't learn traditional knowledge around their stories. around how to relate to each other, how to parent, how to discipline, how to express themselves in all kinds of ways. And what they learn is harsh physical punishment, militaristic ways of living. So you can imagine the impact.
The trauma of these types of historical events is still felt and expressed in communities today.
Some of the potential symptoms of dealing with historical trauma response reactions, and that includes things like obsessive rumination about the deceased, intrusive thoughts or dreams or nightmares of historically traumatic events, survivor guilt, guilt over not living the experience.
Chronic contemporary experiences, called microaggressions, can perpetuate historical trauma.
The microaggressions are the chronic everyday injustices that we endure. They're the interpersonal and environmental messages. So these are verbal and nonverbal encounters that places the burden on us as Indigenous people or the recipient of that encounter to negotiate them.
When I started noticing that angel's food cake is white, but devil's food cake, chocolate, right? Male is all right to get unless it's black male. Magic was all right unless it was black magic. And in our society, even a lie becomes all right. It's a white lie.
But it can also have to do with images that are in our environment, or the lack of images in our environment that is part of that microaggression distress. It gets really tiring seeing this stuff all the time. And what this does is it cartoonizes us. It makes us unidimensional. It makes us not be seen. It renders us invisible because we are not these. Our invisibility has been reinforced through microaggressive experiences.
Many people struggle to cope with the long-lasting effects of historical trauma.
One of the ways we coped was we developed maladaptive coping mechanisms. A real prevalent problem in tribal communities is the issues around substance abuse. It's probably one of the biggest issues in tribal communities in terms of a mental health or behavioral health problem. The result of that is erosions in tribal and family systems. That, of course, led to more violence and more stress. And these are phenomena that sort of impact individuals, families, and communities in this very cyclical process across generations.
The residue of unresolved, historic, traumatic experiences and generational or unresolved grief is not only being passed from generation to generation, it is continuously being acted out and recreated.
Why do our people keep continuing the same cycles that they're already been in, right? The sign of the ultimate oppression working is when the oppressor is able to take away his hands and stand back and go, wow, look at what they're doing to themselves.
And I do believe that that's the video that you have within the presentation, right, Sarah, that we used before? Okay. So it's kind of a really big, heavy topic to talk about, but the way that it will impact what you're doing with this particular activity is that you will see, not all the time, this is not something that's meant to be a blanket, you know, this is going to happen every single time with every student that you work with, but there's going to be a transferring of that historical and intergenerational trauma that you're going to run into. And the difference between those two terms is that historical trauma is actually intergenerational trauma, meaning that it's trauma that's experienced by an entire group, and it's passed on by the way that a family or that individual decides to either address the trauma or not address the trauma. And so those behaviors get passed on to the next generation. Now, recently, in the last several years, there's this new concept they've been doing a lot of research on called epigenetics. And it's really, really new. But what it shows is, and they've started doing research on, they started with mice to see how mice can pass on toxic stress to their offspring. But interestingly, they also are looking at the effects of the Holocaust on the family members of those that survived the Holocaust. So their grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And they're seeing a lot of the same types of patterns and coping skills that their grandparents that actually experienced the event are also, they were also still dealing with. But the biggest thing is that it is cumulative and it transfers across generations. And it's important to remember that with the students that you'll be working with, they come from families that have had this stuff happen to them, but it may be something in their family history that they've never talked about. There's a lot of elders and older people that have attended boarding schools or have had trauma related to just being a Native person, whether that's, you know, racism or discrimination, that they don't really explain or talk to their families about. Like the lady in the video said, you know, it's too painful. The way that this directly affects the community that you're going to be working with in Mount Pleasant is that we have the Mount Pleasant Indian Industrial Boarding School. So that school opened up in 1893 and it functioned as a school until 1934. So students were sent there to learn industrial skills so that they could, for men or for males, they were taught different types of trades that would get them jobs on farms, being farm hands, or working in factories. The females were taught skills where they could, you know, grow up to be a housekeeper for a family or help be a nanny or take care of children. There was a lot of very strict gender rules at the school. And I don't know how many of you have had a chance to go over and check out the school, but it is still in Mount Pleasant. And it's over by Bamber and Bradley Streets on the west side of town. So that was one school in Michigan that was part of that boarding school era. The other school that I'm going to talk about is the Holy Childhood of Jesus Indian Boarding School. And that school actually was in my hometown of Harbor Springs, where I'm from. And that functioned from 1913 to 1983. So a lot of people find it surprising that there are people that are my age that went through this process or had this experience firsthand. So I was the fourth generation of my family to go to the Holy Childhood School. My brothers and I were day students, but my parents were day students as well, but my grandparents and great-grandparents, they lived at the school. And those schools were designed to not only convert Native people or Native youth to Catholicism, but they were also tasked with trying to eradicate culture. And in a lot of ways, they were really successful for a while. That's why also you're going to see that we don't have a common, well-known amongst ourselves kind of culture or history, because you had some families that experienced this and other families that didn't. You had some families that were more open with talking about this and other ones that weren't. So it actually creates quite a bit of shame within our communities. And so therefore people are less likely to teach their kids about what being Native even is, what being Anishinaabe or Ojibwe even is, because they don't want to either one, admit or show that they don't know, or they want their children to assimilate into the dominant culture or American culture and not be kind of burdened with all of the Indian stuff that they think might hurt them. When I was going to school there, it was attached to the Catholic Church that's in town still, but they had benefactors or people who donated money to help continue the running of the school. And so even when I was young, I remember being so excited because the nuns would come and get me. They get my brother. He's 18 months younger than me, so he was in my same classroom at the time. And we got to have a treat, and we got out of class, and they would actually have us go and take pictures with benefactors that came into town. And I never really thought much about it until I got older. And it finally dawned on me that it was a very exploitative activity to put on children. And we had no idea. We just thought, hey, we get cookies and candy, let's go. And I don't have to go to math class today. And one of the other hard things for people to think about, especially I would say for Native people, is that there were some people that did not have a terrible time at these schools. I'm right now studying at MSU. I'm working towards my master's in social work. And it's one thing that we talk about quite a bit in my classes that have a lot of cultural information in them, is the fact that people will have different experiences. And yes, there's these general theories and these ideas that we can apply to people as a whole, human beings, but there's also so many other variables there that affect how you're going to end up dealing with something. So like I was saying earlier, the fact that you guys are willing to, use some of your time to mentor children or these youth, they'd be upset if they heard me say children, but mentor these youth or spend time with them is going to be huge for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was always taught, and I don't know if you guys have heard this before, but you can't be something unless you see it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always been really important to Sarah and I and the people at Behavioral Health for the tribe to kind of give our youth as many experiences as possible so that they can learn from those and maybe find something that will be something to hold on to when they're having a hard time. What else did I want to talk about? So for me, you're going to find it very interesting because I think a lot of people will have stereotypical, whether they mean to or not, expectations of what the community is like, especially when it comes to spirituality and culture or religious practices. And we actually have quite a diverse, there's a lot of different ways of doing things within the Native community locally at the tribe. Another influence in Mount Pleasant for the Native people there has been the Methodist Church, and it's kind of similar to the influence that the Catholic Church has had as well. They had missionaries that came and they tried to convert people. And it's important to keep all of this stuff in its context. It's important to remember that as detrimental as it was, these people that came actually thought they were doing the right thing. And so like when I do presentations or I work with, groups or people from the university, I try very hard to make sure that we're able to talk about this kind of stuff without blaming someone else. One of the things I say is that, all of us, right now on Zoom, none of us were there when all of this stuff happened. But what our job is to learn from it and not let it happen again. So it's very important. As someone who's going to be working with Native students, just keep in mind that we are a contemporary culture just like anyone else. Their family may practice aspects of our traditional culture and they may not. There's been times where I've worked in schools. I have a teaching degree, so I've taught in elementary and high school before. And there will be some really, some teachers that they have really good intentions, but they will make assumptions that students know language or students use language. The little bit of language that you guys were practicing earlier is pretty much the norm with a lot of the Native people in the area in Mount Pleasant or on the reservation right now. It's greetings, it's some daily words. things that you run into on a day-to-day basis. But other than that, we're still in that process of trying to reclaim all of that culture and language and spirituality that was lost due to policies by the federal government, including things like boarding schools. I think that aside from just annihilation, just killing people off, I think that has been one of the most detrimental policies that we've been exposed to as Native people, is boarding schools. Because what they did was they took children right from their homes. Some of the kids that went to school when I was going to school were as young as 5 years old, and they were removed from their homes, and that connection between them and even, you know, their own parents, their mother, was severed, and they had a hard time getting that back. There was a lot of not just physical abuse that went on, but there was emotional abuse, sexual abuse. And for me personally, every few years, I hear about another student that I went to school with, my same age. I know of 14 of them now that have committed suicide because of some of the things that they experienced while they were at school there, the same time I was. So again, things like mentoring and having individuals like yourselves that are willing to kind of pitch in and help is huge, not just for these particular kids and their particular situations, but just for our culture and our communities in general. So I'm really grateful to all of you for, you know, being willing to do that. And I can take questions if you guys have like just questions about any of this. One thing that I really appreciate about the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe is that they are willing to put resources and time toward revitalizing culture. You know, hopefully someday soon, Zivoing will open back up. That's a great place to go and kind of get some very good information that will stick with you. The way that they put the museum together is amazing. You can get down all kinds of rabbit holes online if you want to seek out information on your own. Speaking of Zivoing, on their website, they have links to other online sources of information regarding language and culture and history, if that's something that you're curious about looking into. So I guess for me, culturally and historically, just keep in mind that there was an active policy by our federal government to kind of kill that Native part of us. And that isn't just the case for just Native people. You know, that happened with other ethnic groups and races in the United States too. And to really take the student that you are partnered with or the one that you're working with, take some time to get to know them and see where they're at with that kind of, with that part of themselves. And I would say for the most part, a lot of them are still very hungry for that. So you will see when Sarah and Aaron are putting together the activities that you will be doing or the things you're going to participate in with your student, it will have a lot of cultural context with it. It'll have a lot of cultural knowledge or what we call teachings, because part of our job too with the mentoring program is to help bring that back and do some of that healing as well. So, and if you guys have any questions or even if it's for like a class later on or you're working on something, I'm always open to helping people with any of that kind of stuff. Like I said, I'm very big on, you know, let's look at what happened. Let's study what happened in the past so we don't do it again. I very much do not like shaming people or blaming people, and just your willingness to give of your time it's evidence of your willingness to, you know, help younger people kind of navigate some of those things in life, and we really appreciate it. So I don't know what else, what else would you like me to cover? Anything else there, Sarah?
Oh, that was great.
You guys have questions? If you want, we can Do we want to like put them in the chat box? I know we're getting like 10 minutes on time. Actually, I think we have 2 slides left, which is our first day meeting your mentee, which kind of went over a little bit, but yeah, I think it's also really important that while we have Winnie here, we ask her as many questions as possible, especially about the community. She's very knowledgeable with our Anishinaabemowin, working with the kids, developing those relationships. I mean, there's a lot of relationships with the kids and stuff that I wouldn't even have had, that I've learned from working with her the past couple of years. And yeah, so like ask questions whenever you, yeah, freely. So then you guys have questions?
I was actually going to ask if you don't mind sharing, like, what were your experiences with your parents, like, wanting to pass on Native American culture to you? Like, were they more open about talking about the history, or they were more reserved?
So I feel very, 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 very fortunate in that both of my parents, so I'm Little Traverse Bay Band's Odawa. And both of my parents are. My mom is she's half Odawa and half Irish, and my dad is full. And I was really bummed about that when I was like a teenager, because that means I'm related to everybody around me at the tribe. My mom's one half, my dad's the other half, but it's not so bad now. But I was really lucky because both sides of my family have always practiced our spirituality. They've taught us our culture. I grew up going to a lot of ceremonies, traveling around. If my parents couldn't afford to take me to ceremonies, they would pack up my stuff and send me with one of my relatives when I was young, 10, 12 years old. So I've been really lucky in that way. What's interesting is that, yeah, we had several generations that attended the boarding school here in town. I mean, it's just like right over the hill from where I'm at right now. I'm in the house I grew up in. But the way I always looked at it was I went to school. We went to church every Thursday and Friday. I was excited about going to church on Thursdays and Fridays because then I didn't have math class. So I was like, yes. And then I've also was asked to do a lot of the readings in church. So I got to go up and I had a little microphone, and as you can probably tell, I like to talk as it is. I mean, I can tell that about me right now. But my parents and my grandparents kept school separate. So it's like they almost treated it like a job. So it's like, okay, go to school, but when you get home from school, we're not going to worry about school again until tomorrow when you have to go back. And seeing, and this is just my own personal experience, but seeing a lot of the hypocrisy that I saw in what was being taught at church and in our catechism classes with how people actually functioned, really drove home to me the importance of maintaining my own religious practices at home. To me, at home, our ceremonies and the things that we did lined up with the people that I knew. They walked their walk and they walk their talk. A lot of times when I would watch things that happened at school or at church when I was at Holy Childhood, didn't line up with each other. It's like, wait a minute, they're saying one thing, but they're acting another way. And that's something else that kids have that people forget. When you're a child, you're really watching and you're checking things out. And you can tell when there's those incongruent, things happening. So I asked my mom and dad before, it's like, okay, so if you went to school there and it wasn't all that great, why did you send me and my brothers there? And it was me and 2 of my brothers that went to school there. I have 5 younger brothers. I'm the oldest. And my mom said, well, at the time, it was more important for us to have you go to a school where we knew you'd be around other Native kids than it was for you to go to public school. Now, the school was up to 6th grade when I went to school there. So I went there from 1st grade to 6th grade. And I remember my first day down at the school, and I look at kids nowadays, and I was 6 years old, And I look at a 6-year-old now and they're just little babies, you know, kindergarten, first graders. And I remember my first day and I was required to get up in front of this whole auditorium of students and teachers and introduce myself. And I look at little kids today and it's like, oh my gosh, like the fact that we were that young, and those other kids that were there were kids that were from Traverse City, other Native communities in Michigan. They were from Wisconsin and Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota. They were from all over the place. And I could not imagine having that happen to me, where I was taken at that young of an age and then kept away from my family. So my parents really always held strong to their beliefs. My mom's side of my family, they mixed both Catholicism and our traditional spirituality. And there are people that believe that you aren't supposed to do that, but that's what her family did. And for my tribe in particular, the Little Traverse Bay Bands, we were able to maintain our place in our homeland still here in Harbor Springs, because we adapted and kind of hid in plain sight a lot of our ceremonies. So we adapted a lot of our seasonal feasts and our feasts for like our clans and our feasts for our, you know, spirit names and those kinds of things. We changed those into feasts that coincided with the Catholic calendar. So they became, you know, feasts around holidays or you know, sacred days or holy days. And so therefore the church didn't really bother us because they thought we were following along and doing what we were supposed to do. So instead of, you know, it being a, you know, our spring feast, it was, you know, a feast to, you know, honor a certain saint or a certain holiday. So I have always been really proud of the fact that our people are so resilient and they're so creative that there's even people like us still alive, because there were so many different things that were tried to kind of get rid of us, and we're still here. So for me on a daily basis at school, I was a nerd. So I liked school. And then on breaks and in the summertime, I'd play school and I'd make my cousins play school with me, and everyone hated it. But I've always been nerdy. So I think that helped. I had one story that I shared. I think I told Sarah this story, but like I said, I went to school there when I was in first grade. And I did not understand that we had to wait for 2 different, and there were only 2 different times in the day where we could go to the bathroom. It was like a group thing. If you had to go outside of those 2 times, you were kind of SOL, for a better way of like putting it. So I had to pee really bad. And I remember we were working on collages and I'm sitting there at my little desk, you know, we had the little short little chairs that little kids have. And I really had to go. And I went up and asked like 3 times. And she said, no, you can't. That's not how we do it here. No one's going to be running back and forth from the bathroom. So I finally told her, well, if you don't let me go, I'm going to pee my pants in my seat. And she goes, well, that's what you're going to have to do, because I can't break the rule for you, because then we're going to have everyone always trying to run out of the room. So that's what I did. Went back to my desk, my little table, grabbed my scissors and my little magazines that I was cutting, and I peed my pants in class. Got in trouble immediately. The kids that lived at the school, they had bedrooms, like a big long room full of beds, and a playroom upstairs of the school. It was 4 stories. They hauled me upstairs, took all my clothes off of me, put my clothes in the wash machine, and then they put me in this really hot bath. I had to take a bath. They called my mom, and they kept telling me that, you know, my mom was going to be so upset, they were just saying terrible things to me, not friendly at all, really being rough when they were kind of washing me down. My mom got there, and I'm really lucky to have the mom that I do. My mom got there, my mom was upset with them, and that really surprised them. And so she said, you know, I don't want you to ever do this again. You know, this stuff has to change. She's just a little kid. I can't believe you do this to other people's kids. I'm going to, you know, talk to other parents about this. So that all happened. I was nervous about going back to school the next day because I was, you know, the girl that peed my pants in class. But I went back to school and my friends all thought it was so cool. It was like my little, like, you know, sticking it to them kind of thing, and they thought it was great. So that part worked out for me. But everyone has their own experiences there. You know, I have my other two brothers that went to school there. Punishment was not, it's not something that we would allow today. Two of my brothers, the two that went there, the two that I had that went there, one of them always was kind of like behaving himself. The other one was kind of rambunctious, and he got paddled, and they didn't just take you out in the hallway and give you a swat. They took it in front of everybody. And so just to think about the emotional and the mental kind of like scars you get from seeing that, just being a small kid, it's really difficult. And I have family members that still really struggle with substance abuse issues and, you know, depression, anxiety, and it's from those kinds of experiences at such a young age because you're so confused as to what's going on. So yeah, we were day students, so we were able to come home. My parents volunteered, and they would take 2 to 3 of the boarding students that weren't from this area, and they'd have them come over on the weekends, and they'd go to ceremonies with my family, or we'd have feasts and they'd participate. We'd go to powwows and they could go with us. So they tried to help those other students that weren't from our area. But it's interesting to sit and talk to different survivors, I guess, of those schools, just to see and compare your experiences. And like I said before, people are really surprised that there's, you know, people like me that are kind of on the younger end that had those experiences too. They think it's this thing that happened way a long time ago, but it wasn't that far.
Yeah.
That far off from now. So sorry, that was kind of rambly. I don't know if to answer your question or not, but.
Anyone else have a question or anything they want to ask? No. I'm bobbleheading up here. Sorry, guys. It's like getting that like 3 o'clock hit the wall kind of vibe. Yeah, so kind of just to go along with that and working with our youth and stuff here. Oh, hold on. I got to share my screen again. All right. Can you guys see it?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Cool, cool. Our quick little last slide. So that's a little bit about the history we have. Sometimes it won't be like right in your face kind of thing. A lot of our kids don't like going to school, and they're like, why don't you like going to school? And then it's kind of one of those things where they're either being raised by parents or grandparents that they were in the boarding schools and they didn't like going to school either. So, you know, it makes sense that that generational mistrust, thank you, Kim, is trickling down. So then this is how like we're working to, you know, combat that, to get the kids excited about school again, get them excited about their futures, to make sure that when they grow up, they're thriving individuals, that they have opportunities to do whatever they set their mind to. And that's what our program is all about. Another thing I just wanted to comment is that, like, it's not kind of like, yes, that happened, and I love how Renee said that we want to learn from it so it doesn't happen again. Yes, there are some kids that have a little bit more rougher around the edges, but those are the kids that they're going to try to, like, in your first day meeting them, it kind of goes here. They're going to be weary of you. They're going to be like, who is this person coming in to talk to me? They're just going to be another in and out of person with my life. They don't really understand that stability. I'm not going to say all of them do, but a majority of them do. So be prepared when you do, you know, start working with the kids and stuff, that they're going to test you. they're gonna press your buttons. They're gonna try to figure out, they might be flat out like rude and disrespectful. That's their way of kind of vetting you, I guess you would say. Yeah, there's like a couple of kids that, well, not kids, but they're high schoolers now, that if I were to meet them a year ago, I would like think that these kids are like totally like just disrespectful on their way to juvie. But after kind of like working with them in the program and then seeing where they're coming from, that's their way to like, that's their way of seeing if you're worth their time, basically. So stick with it. Our kids, honestly, once they do develop that relationship with you and they develop that trust with you, that genuine trust, it's like the coolest thing. I can't really even like say it in words, because it's just that they trust you enough to be able to like share with you their like dreams, their aspirations and stuff. And that's the experience we want for you as mentors. Like it's something that you can't really describe, kind of thing. But yeah, so on top of that, if you want to ask on our first day of like meeting your mentees, we have some questions here, like questions you have, like you can ask, you don't have to ask, but just be prepared to talk, because I can guarantee you our first day of meeting our kids are left, like they're probably not going to put on their screens, or they're going to do this. And they're going to look at you like this the whole time. And they're probably not even going to talk, and they're just going to type in the chat box. But eventually, after like 2 or 3 weeks, they'll give you this. And that's a good sign. Yeah. Oops, there we go. And then right here is just another kind of quick tip we thought about. I'll let Aaron kind of go over this one. He's really good at explaining this for me.
Yeah, sure. So it says reflect your own state of mind before approach someone with your own concerns. Make sure that you're in the right frame of mind to talk and listen without being judgmental. So one cool thing that I think we'll be able to do over Zoom is get you guys some sage in a shell, and all our students will have it too. So that's, I don't know, Winnie, if you want to explain about sage, you know more than I do, but it's a way that I try to like clear my mind and let go of all the things that are affecting me before then, and really just like reset myself.
Yeah. The sponge.
Is that good enough what I explained, Winnie, or you want to add in?
Perfect. No, that was good.
Yeah. So hopefully we can get you all a shell and some sage, and we can do, we'll do like a lesson on that. I'm sure like a little mini lesson, because some of our students, they may have smudged, but they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So another thing that I would say about that too is mentors, and me and Sarah, we're not therapists, we're not counselors. So I would say listen, be careful about the advice that you're giving to kids, because definitely don't want to steer them in the wrong direction on accident, even if you have good intentions. I don't know about you, Sarah, but I have no problem, you know, saying I've gone to counseling, I've seen therapists, and it really helped me. And if that's something you would like to do, we can definitely set that up, because those therapists work in our building. So that's really the route that I would try to go, instead of, you know, if they're divulging some personal things that you think might need attention, tell me and Sarah, but I would say try to encourage them to talk to someone who's licensed to help them with the problems they're going through. Maintain positive body language. So yeah, everybody knows what that looks like. Recognize cultural differences. I would say the biggest thing there is try not to assume anything. And like, it's not offensive to ask questions if you don't understand why somebody's doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I got for that.
All right. Is there any questions? We're at the end here. Any questions about anything you heard? Anything about the program, anything for the cultural side of it, anything about like, I know we're going to be sending out another flyer here in a little while for like an official start date. I'll send that to Cody and Ashma, and they can pass it on. But yeah, other than that, thank you guys so much for coming. If there's any more questions, shoot us a text, email us. We're moderately tech savvy. Yeah. So I guess that's it.